No one in the packed sanctuary that Sunday morning could have predicted how quickly the atmosphere would shift from electrifying worship to breathless panic. The City of Refuge Church in Gardena, California, had been alive with praise, hands raised, voices booming, gospel harmonies shaking the walls. Bishop Noel Jones, 74 years old yet still a towering presence, stood at the pulpit in his signature style, delivering a sermon with the fire that had defined his decades in ministry. His message was titled, "When the Body Can't Carry the Calling," and he was working the room like only he could, moving, gesturing, commanding the moment. But beneath the applause and amen shouts, something was building, something no one could see. About half an hour into the sermon, subtle changes began. His voice, normally sharp and resonant, grew softer, trembling. He gripped the podium a little tighter. Some thought it was a wave of emotion. Charismatic preachers often pause mid-sermon to soak in the spirit. But then his right hand pressed against his chest, his left clung to the stand, and in an instant that seemed to happen in slow motion, Bishop Jones staggered, stumbled backward, and collapsed. The microphone stand clattered to the floor. Loretta Jones, seated just feet away, shot out of her seat, her voice slicing through the gasps. "Call 911!" She reached him within seconds, hands shaking, tears already streaming, calling his name. Pastoral staff rushed forward, trying to keep him conscious. Paramedics arrived quickly, but by then the bishop was barely responsive, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. They slipped an oxygen mask over his face, lifted him onto a stretcher, and wheeled him toward the ambulance as the congregation broke into hymns, voices quivering, some dropping to their knees in desperate prayer. For those who knew him well, this terrifying moment didn't come out of nowhere. Behind the scenes, there had been warning signs. Friends and staff had quietly voiced concerns over the past year. His slower walk to the pulpit, moments of losing his train of thought mid-message, relying more on others to help him on and off the stage. His preaching schedule was relentless, his travel constant, the demands of running a mega ministry unrelenting. Privately, Bishop Jones had been battling high blood pressure and chronic fatigue, with early indications of heart strain. He'd even experienced 2 smaller episodes in the past year. Brief losses of consciousness that he dismissed as dehydration or stress. But those closest to him were worried. Loretta especially had been pleading for him to see a specialist, her frustration turning to tears just weeks before this collapse. Still, he refused to slow down. Just days earlier, doctors had told him to cancel his upcoming preaching engagements. His blood pressure was elevated, and tests suggested cardiac fatigue. Yet, he brushed it off, telling a confidant, "If I die in the pulpit, I'll die doing God's work." Those words now hung in the air like a prophecy fulfilled. That Sunday morning, as the ambulance sped toward Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, sirens wailing, the bishop slipped in and out of consciousness. Upon arrival, his blood pressure readings were dangerously high, and doctors determined he'd suffered a hypertensive emergency, a crisis that, if untreated, could be fatal. Worse, medical staff discovered something chilling. Just 48 hours earlier, Bishop Jones had been at the very same hospital for chest pain and dizziness. Doctors had urged him to stay overnight for monitoring due to irregular heart rhythms, warning him of serious risk. He refused. "The people need me this Sunday," he reportedly told them before walking out. Loretta learned about that prior visit only after the collapse. One friend at the hospital recalled her breaking down, saying over and over, "I told him this would happen." Family members began arriving at the ICU, siblings, close friends, and key church leaders. The mood was heavy, and when doctors met with them privately, the news was grim. Not only had the bishop experienced a hypertensive crisis, but there were clear signs of early congestive heart failure. His body, they said, had been running on empty for years. The words hit Loretta like a blow. She collapsed into a chair, hands covering her face, while others tried to comfort her. In that moment, all the warnings she had given him, all the late-night arguments urging him to slow down came crashing back. Then came a twist no one expected. A handwritten letter marked for Loretta only had been found in his study and delivered to her at the hospital. The contents remain a mystery, but insiders hinted it could contain instructions for stepping down from ministry, and perhaps even an apology for not listening sooner. As doctors continued monitoring him, the lead cardiologist made a blunt recommendation to the family. If Bishop Jones continued at his current pace, he would not survive the next episode. They should consider putting him on permanent medical leave immediately. The suggestion sparked an immediate divide in the room. Loretta agreed without hesitation. But one senior board member questioned whether this meant a temporary break or full retirement, pointing out that the bishop isn't just a man, he's the brand. That comment peeled back layers of tension that had been simmering for years. There had long been quiet talk of a leadership transition, especially after controversies over mismanaged events, delayed staff payments, and declining attendance at certain services. Some board members saw this health crisis as their chance to accelerate those plans. According to insiders, calls and emails about succession began that very night, even as Loretta prayed at her husband's bedside. Church bylaws gave them a legal opening. If the senior pastor was medically unable to serve for more than 30 days, a transition committee could take over temporarily. Rumors began swirling through church group chats the next morning. Was Bishop Jones stepping down? Had he suffered a heart attack? Would someone else take the pulpit? Amid the whispers, Loretta made a strategic move. She called a private meeting with the hospital chaplain and her legal advisor, possibly to safeguard her husband's legacy and prevent a forced takeover. Some speculated she might even make parts of the bishop's handwritten letter public as a way to clarify his wishes. Then, 36 hours after his collapse, something remarkable happened. Bishop Jones stirred. His fingers twitched, his eyelids fluttered, and he whispered a faint yes when asked if he could hear. Loretta leaned over, tears welling, holding his hand. Then he turned his head toward her and whispered words that broke her heart. "I'm sorry I didn't listen." She bent down, kissed his forehead, and replied, "You're still here. That's all that matters." When the cardiologist asked about his plans for the future, the bishop's voice was raspy but deliberate. "The people need a shepherd, but maybe it's time to teach them how to walk without me." For a man who had built his life around the pulpit, those words marked a seismic shift. Then he made one more request. "Bring me a notepad." Weak but determined, he began to write. No one knows exactly what he wrote, but some believe it's a farewell message to his congregation, or perhaps a roadmap for the church's future without him at the helm. Whatever it is, Loretta now keeps it locked away. News of his awakening spread quickly. Social media lit up with prayers and tributes. Big names in gospel music and even his sister Grace Jones posted messages of love and support. The hashtag #ChallengePrayForBishop Jones began trending. But inside church leadership, the conversation turned immediately to logistics. How soon could he return? And should they announce retirement or recovery? Loretta, however, was firm. He would not return until fully recovered, and only if he chose to. Just as hope began to rise, another storm hit. A leaked audio recording, allegedly from a private meeting just 2 weeks before the collapse, began circulating online. In the clip, a voice believed to be Bishop Jones admits to feeling dizzy and having something going on in my chest, but insists, "If I fall, preaching." A staff member warns him about the danger, suggesting they postpone services, but he cuts them off. "No, let the word go forth. I don't need sympathy. I need strength." The leak tore the congregation in two. Some praised him as a man of unshakable faith, willing to serve until his last breath. Others condemned it as reckless and manipulative, accusing him of gambling with his life and the trust of those who follow him. Calls for greater transparency erupted, with some demanding to know who in leadership knew about his condition and why no one intervened. Loretta has said little publicly, posting only a brief message, "Thank you for the prayers, he's still fighting." But insiders say she is furious about the leak and about how some leaders are using her husband's health crisis for political gain. She's even considering taking on a more formal role in the church or addressing the congregation herself once he's stable enough. Doctors warn the road ahead will be long. Cardiac rehab, lifestyle changes, and emotional recovery await him. Whether he will return to the pulpit, retire, or shift into a mentorship role remains uncertain. What is certain is that his collapse has forced a reckoning, not just for him and his family, but for the entire church. Questions of health, legacy, leadership, and faith now hang in the balance. And for Bishop Noel Jones, the man who once said he'd rest only when the Lord called him home, this may be the first time he truly considers what resting might mean.